Hi, so we're going to be presenting our hidden persuasions techniques today. We are team 7. I'm Aliza, and I'm here with Carolina, Michael, Tara, and Nicole. The 3 techniques that we're going to be presenting are social proof, God terms, and sex.
So I guess first starting off with social proof. So we've chosen to start off with a good quote that sums up the idea of social proofs and society's behavior to be like other people and follow the masses. And that quote pretty much reads, people have an innate drive to copy others' decisions and behaviors. So first for the technique, the idea of social proof is that people follow the actions of others and that since so many people behave in a certain way, it must be correct. And social proof works in advertising by stating that 90% of X do buy or prefer Y, where X is the target social group and Y is the actual product they buy. Additionally, nothing works better than hearing that others approve of a product. And essentially, the more likes a product gets, the more inclined we are to like it as a society. And this impact is exponential. And for example, high ratings and positive appraisals sell the most. And for the needs targeted, social proofs target esteem needs, especially social needs, the need for respecting others, and the need for social inclusion and recognition.
So, some of the other effects that we see on the consumer is that it helps build trust with customers. People tend to scare easily from traditional marketing and advertisers, but they trust other consumers that have tried the product and have no reason to be selling to you. So it validates it for customers and it helps the brands build credibility and build brand awareness. The more that other people talk about them, we see it, for example, with influencers or celebrities now, the more that they talk about it or they promote it on their end, of customers who idolize them, they also follow the trend. So we can see here something I kind of touched on, that marketing companies really need to take advantage of social proof. There's a way for them to use it to their advantage and like market it themselves. They can put critiques and reviews on their websites, which is doing social proof, but they're also using it as their own marketing technique. Because as we can see, by seeing the ad blocking app downloads growing faster and faster, clearly people are growing more and more wary of those traditional marketing techniques. So one good example that I found was the When I Work website. A lot of websites actually do this. They show companies that use their products right now, and they'll have like their logos down there. They actually have their real life stories. So you can click on the company story and you can see exactly how they've used When I Work and how it's helped them in their business. I think one of the biggest things here is if you see a company that like I know there's a couple big names on there like Fabletics. If you're a company that idolizes that company, you're going to look at it and be like, oh, Fabletics uses that. I want to use that. And I think the pictures they added of the people helps build brand trust and trust in those consumers as well.
So this technique can also be quite problematic, and it's important for companies to ensure that any kind of wrong behavior is not highlighted. So this wrong behavior can be stealing, smoking, or drunk driving, just for a few examples. And this strategy can be very dangerous as it makes people perform these undesirable behaviors because they see it as the norm. And regardless of these behaviors, one of the easiest shortcuts that people use when making their decisions is pretty much looking at what other people do, and they choose to follow the masses regardless of problematic behavior.
So now we're going to be presenting God terms, moderately effective technique, and it is very easy to implement.
So, to give a brief explanation on what God terms are as an advertising technique, it's basically the use of words that imply ultimately positive things. So, it's the use of words like happiness, amazing, sorry, magic, just things that are inevitably considered and linked to positive things, and that's a universal human needs. And God terms are very effective because they target the limbic system, which is the part of the brain in charge of emotions and memory, response to emotional stimuli, as well as reinforcing behavior. Next slide, please. So to give a little bit of a more technical approach to these needs that God terms target, basically according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, our needs are split into 5 categories, and the needs that God terms target are essentially self needs and social needs. So, self needs can also be, according to Maslow, categorized as egoistic needs, which are needs for prestige, for success, for happiness, living life to its ultimate potential, and for status. Whereas social needs are a little bit more the innate kind of animal kingdom needs, which are kind of our instinctive needs to have a necessity to feel like you belong to a group in society, respect, safety, inclusion, and acceptance from other people.
So moving on to our first example, we can see how God terms actually dates back to World War II in the World War II propaganda ads. This is a very literal view of evil and good. This ad states, "Deliver us from evil." Evil could be the devil, and it could also mean war. So the idea here of buying war bonds, it's actually to target patriotic duty, and it's actually getting into our self needs as humans, want to escape pain and seek pleasure. The emotional appeal into the hearts and minds of American soldiers to win the war or help fund the war in order to help those that suffer. It's basically asking God to save us, or a prayer to God. So it's actually targeting our deep desire for safety and a worry-free future.
So this ad was chosen because it's actually very clever in the sense that it targets both social needs, egoistic needs, as well as social needs. So this ad actually starts off with Chris Hemsworth waking up in his Manhattan penthouse. So obviously that kind of gives off an impression of success. Obviously, like if he's living in probably a very expensive apartment, he's probably been successful in his life. But it also, while this ad targets mainly self or according to Maslow, egoistic needs, it also targets morality. So it talks about success, about success, about being a better man, but also about how integrity is how you behave when there's nothing to be gained. So that's a quote from the ad itself. And so morality is actually a very intelligent method to use, a very intelligent thing to target in advertising, because it also taps into our social needs, such as being loved and respected. And the more moral and righteous you are, the more people will love and respect you. So this ad targets the egoistic needs as well as the social needs. It uses God terms such as success, integrity, better man, and strive for better.
So our next example is looking at Nike's equality campaign featuring LeBron James and Serena Williams. And this campaign was actually released also in the Black History Month, celebrating that. And here, equality is one of the quotes in the actual advertisement says, "Equality is not defined by your looks, but by your actions." So it really targets our social needs and our need for inclusion and for acceptance when looking at others. So in here, the God terms that were used were equality, bonds, opportunity, and worth outshines. So worth should outshine color, meaning that worth should be prioritized, and color, everyone should be equal. It is valued by society. We can see how the ad, no one could disagree with equality, so it really targets those moral values that people have and makes it more appealing towards the audience and harder to disagree with the message that the ad was trying to convey. So to finalize, the effect of God terms in consumer behavior, it really adds power to advertisements, especially when you pair a product with a belief with a belief that a lot of people value, such as equality, inclusion, the need for connection, etc. And it also activates our need or fear. So, as Freud said, it really targets our dark unconscious desires. So, pairing words that link to individuals' behaviors make an ad more effective. And something to be careful is looking at different countries. Not all countries value the same things. So, really looking at who's your target audience and how to better serve the message in your region is something that advertisers should take into account when using gut terms.
To quote the 1990 hit by Salt and Pepper, let's talk about sex in advertising. Sex can be pretty, is very commonly implemented. Its effectiveness isn't quite as strong as certain other ways to do advertising. And what's interesting is there's actually a lack of research in how effective sex advertising is because people don't really want to research that topic. So basically, sex advertising is usually sexually provocative imagery in advertisements to promote a product, like seen below. So the needs that are targeted is a physical attraction. The consumer finds an attraction to whoever or whatever is in the advertisement, and they're often distracted from the product and more focused on the actual either reference or person. And also self-image. Whoever sees it takes into question their own self-image, or the ad can increase your personal image when you're using the advertised product. And relationships, also because it causes us to think about and kind of reflect like what people crave or want in a relationship of that nature. So why use it? It's a very common way to promote product. It really grasps attention. The recall of the actual ad is much higher, but the recall of the specific product being advertised, is quite a bit lower. And sex, people say it a lot, sex sells. It draws attention away from the product, like I previously said. And what's interesting is that when an ad is kind of middle, low tier explicit, women are more favorable with it. But when it starts to get really explicit and controversial, women are much less favorable, whereas men are generally favorable about it all the time. And it works better for products that are more naturally related to sexuality. And kind of a quote from the book was, "This product will result in the sexiness portrayed." So there are certainly many problems that come with this, especially in today's day and age. This is an ad from the 70s that is quite sexist, to be frank. It's really commonly used, so it's hard to stand out when you use that type of ad. They're often demeaning towards women, and especially now, if you're targeting a male or female group with an attractive image of the opposite gender, it's assuming sexual preferences, and that is a very thin road to tread on. Another example is when sexual imagery ads are hidden. So in the Lion King, children's movie, the nose and kind of the shape around the eyes, if you draw it out, actually makes the image of a woman from looking at the backside of her. And it's something that we don't see, but it resonates with us without even realizing it, because those images and that tactic is so common in our brains. And you don't want to overuse sexual hints that detract too much from the product. Thank you.